Welcome to the Three Down Nation podcast. This is John Hodge. Today, we're doing a very special episode of the show with new Winnipeg Blue Bombers quarterback, Payton Thorne. Payton, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys for having me on.
Payton's joining us from Cincinnati, Ohio. We're going to get into your tenure with the Bengals in a moment first. But before that, I want to get back into the start of your NCAA career. You committed in 2019 to Michigan State as a three-star recruit, and by 2021 had risen to the team's starter. You went 11-2, over 3,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, only 10 picks. What allowed you to have so much success early in your collegiate career with the Spartans?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, had great guys around me. I was a part of a really good team, had good coaching staff, and I was very fortunate to be part of that team. I'm definitely thankful for my time at Michigan State. I love that place, and we had a lot of fun that year. But I think also, I was prepared for that moment, and we brought a transfer in the year or the off season before that year, and I just asked coach, like, hey, am I going to get a legit shot here? Is this going to be a real competition? They told me yeah. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to stay here then. And I worked my tail off, and got some good help from people close to me along that way, like they had my whole life. And I kind of did what I've done my entire life, worked hard, and I guess made it happen when it counted.
And we'll go back quickly. Forgive me for a stupid question. Originally from Aurora, Illinois, are you a big Wayne's World guy?
I am not. I am. Yeah, I grew up in Aurora, and I lived in Naperville as well. I was around the border of the two. Finished my last two years of high school at Naperville Central. So, but no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't say so.
Okay, fair. Mike Myers is Canadian, so he's a legend up here.
All right.
One of my all-time favorite movies. Had to ask. 2022, you returned to the Spartans. Still good numbers. Almost 3,000 yards, 19 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. But the team went from being an 11-win club to a 5-win club. What was the change, and did that potentially lead you to transferring after the season was done?
Yeah, we had a new team that year. A lot of players back, but a lot of guys departed as well. Few new coaches as well. That was a change up. But you could attribute to a lot of things. It's never one thing in football. Football's the greatest team game that there is, and you can never point to one guy, one thing that says, "Hey, this was the whole change in a game or a season." So, for the most part, uh, there's just unfortunate things. We lost a few close games that year. For me personally, I was injured the entire year. I got hurt week one, and I had turf toe the whole year. So that was not fun. I feel like a big part of my game is being able to get out of trouble, and I wasn't able to do that quite as much. So that was a little bit difficult, but it was what it was. And I was in the year after that, 2023. I was at Michigan State for the spring. I was not planning on leaving, and then a few things happened to where it was almost like I couldn't say no to the opportunity that had arose, and then also a couple of things that were going on at Michigan State was just I didn't feel like it was a good situation, so decided to go to Auburn, and I guess the rest is history.
What was it in particular about Auburn that made you make the leap? That's obviously a far distance from kind of where you grew up and obviously where you had your initial collegiate success at Michigan State.
Yeah, like I said, there were a couple of things at Michigan State that were a little strange in the spring. Again, still love that place, and didn't want to leave. I've talked to guys that are still there. I've talked to Coach Izzo, over the last few years, and so the people that matter, they know, the real story of what went down, and then what happened with a couple other schools before I went to Auburn. But ultimately, when I talked to my close group of people around me, my tight circle, we decided that was probably the best decision for my future, and that was when I made the move.
In 2023, as you said, you ended up at Auburn, spent 2 seasons there, and one of the guys on that coaching staff was Ken Austin, a CFL legend as a quarterback, a Grey Cup winning head coach. He was an offensive analyst in your first season with the Tigers, and then he was your quarterbacks coach your last collegiate year in 2024. What was it like working closely with Kent, and did you ever talk to him about playing or coaching in the CFL and his experiences north of the border?
Absolutely. It was great playing for Coach Austin. I really enjoyed my time with him. He's a really solid guy as well, off the field. And so we definitely had conversations about Canada. We knew how good of a player he was, how good of a coach he was. I think he might have been an executive too, or something like that, or a GM or something. And so obviously he had an incredible career up there, and we definitely heard a lot of stories. It's a different game. It really is. It's still football, but there's an extra guy. There's a lot of different rules as well. So we talked to him about those things as a quarterback group. Heard some of the different concepts that he would run. He always said that it's more creative up there, and um, it's more fun. He used to say all the time. I guess you throw it more, and you got one less down and everything. So he used to say those things, and then after my senior season playing there, he had brought it up that there were a few teams interested, and they were asking him about things. And at that point in time, I was um, going through the draft process and focused on the NFL, obviously. But we had a conversation about it, and it wasn't a long conversation, but obviously he's a wealth of knowledge for all things CFL, and was a fantastic player up there, as well as I believe coach and executive, like I said.
You mentioned the turf toe in 2022, and I wanted to ask you about your rushing numbers because over your 3 seasons at Michigan State, you ran for 270 yards. But your first season at Auburn, you essentially doubled that 515 rushing yards in just 1 season. Was it the system at Auburn that allowed you to open things up with your legs more, or was that just a natural part of what you do as a player with the rushing attack?
Yeah, I always knew that I could run. I didn't do it a ton just because it wasn't a huge part of our offense at Michigan State. And then at Auburn, due to a few different things, personnel, and then also scheme, I guess, or I won't get into it that much, but I had to run. And so I decided to, when the time was right to run the ball, whether it be scrambling or quarterback run, then I was going to run. And I'm not a big believer in sliding or anything like that. So get what you can get, and don't take stupid shots, but get what you can get, and let's roll.
You went undrafted in the NFL draft earlier this year, but you signed with the Cincinnati Bengals. Tell me what that decision was like, and I'd love to hear what it was like prepping alongside guys like Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow.
Yeah, draft day came around, day three comes around, and the late round guys and the undrafted guys, they're sitting close by their phone all day, talking to your agent. And so, right after the draft ended, it was probably 10 minutes later. I was on the phone with the quarterback coach in Cincinnati, and I had signed my contract there, and we were all squared away with that. And then obviously getting down uh, to Cincinnati in the spring, going through OTAs and stuff like that, and it was a great experience, getting to learn from guys like Joe Burrow. Jake Brown is a really good guy as well, and has been productive in the league. And then working closely with, like you said, Coach Taylor and the rest of the staff. It was a great experience. A high-powered offense, great receivers, skill everywhere. And it was fun to be a part of a team, even if it was only for a few months. But obviously, wish it could have been longer. But it was a great experience, something that I'll carry with me, for the rest of my playing and coaching career. And yeah, very thankful for it.
Why was now the right time for you to sign a CFL contract? I would assume there was potential UFL interest, there was obviously CFL interest, but you also could have chosen to sit and wait for another NFL opportunity. Why was now the right time for you to come to Canada?
Yeah, I've just seen what guys have done in the past. A lot of really good players, really good quarterbacks have gone up there. Talking with people in Canada and hearing the list of coaches, because I plan on getting into coaching after I'm done playing, and follow my grandfather and my father's footsteps in that area, and seeing the list of great coaches here in college and in the NFL that played in the CFL at quarterback, and then hearing what Coach Austin had to say about the creativity of the game and the things that he brought from Canada down here to this game. It was something that was very interesting to me. And then I like to play, and I want to play. And when you have a contract in front of you with a team that wants you, and I don't want to turn that down. And so, I know this league has been around, I think, longer than the NFL has. So, It's obviously a storied league, very stable in what they do, and I've known about the CFL my whole life, so it was something that I was excited to do. I'm excited to get up there and meet everybody and get in that playbook and learn everything I can.
Obviously, Zach Collaros is a Cincinnati collegiate legend where you are right now. I know you played collegiately with Nick Mardner, who was a first round CFL draft pick a few years ago at Auburn. I'm curious if you have any other CFL connections, guys who maybe at the high school level, collegiate level, you've known who maybe you had some questions saying, hey, what is this going on about the CFL? What's that? Who were maybe people who helped answer those questions and sell you on the CFL a little bit, though it doesn't sound like it was a hard sell.
Yeah, I think I had a teammate at Michigan State, most positive, Shakir Brown, played in the CFL, and I've talked with him over the years a few different times, and I think we touched on the CFL one time, what his experience was up there. I've talked to Nick about it as well. He's a really good guy, and we've kept up a little bit over the past couple years. Other than that, I'm trying to think. Um, I don't know if I know anybody else other than that. I'm probably forgetting somebody, so I apologize to whoever that is that I should be thinking of. But obviously, Coach Austin. But other than that, uh, not really.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, as we touched on earlier, Austin's a huge one. He's not in the Canadian Football Hall of Fame, but I'd imagine it's just a matter of time, given everything he's accomplished up here as a player and a coach. What do you know about the Blue Bombers? I mean, Winnipeg took a bit of a step back in the standings this year, but they recently won to 5 straight Grey Cups. Zach Collaros, the starting QB. They just signed Bryce Perkins, a guy who was around the NFL a lot over the past half decade or so. What are your expectations coming in as a member of the Blue Bombers for 2026?
Yeah, I've only heard good things about the Blue Bombers and their organization. I heard it's a first class organization, and obviously being down here my whole life, I don't know a ton about the league, but I did hear that, 5 years in a row to the Grey Cup. I know what the Grey Cup is, obviously, and obviously that's a big deal, no matter what league you're in. And so that's an impressive thing. I've heard the fan base is great. I've heard Winnipeg is a sports city in a way, and so doing my best to learn as much as I can about the place. And like I said, I'm just looking forward to getting the opportunity to compete and get up there and whatever the situation may be, just get after it. Give everything I got, and if I do that, I can look at myself in the mirror at the end of the day and know I did whatever I can. So excited to get up there and play. I'm confident in my abilities. I know what kind of player I am and what I bring to the table. And my last 2 years at Auburn, in a lot of ways, people got the wrong idea, of what kind of player I am. So I feel like I have something to prove as well, and I'm excited to do that.
When you say people got maybe the wrong idea, what do you mean? Do you mean just maybe like the statistics dipped, or how are you trying to prove them wrong with your next step?
Yeah, there's statistics, and people love to look at statistics. And only so many people can watch the film. People literally don't even have access to the film, so you can only watch the all 22 if you have access to it, or if it's like the playoff semifinal. They got like the Sky Cam. I was watching that the other day. It's fun to see, everybody and know what's really going on. Um, but yeah, there were a lot of things going on behind the scenes. A lot of things I was, pretty frustrated with in my time there. And, some people got to, know a little bit of what was going on, but, there's still a lot that, I wish I could tell that, it's just not the time to do that. But, yeah, there was a lot of frustrations over my time there.
And last one, you mentioned you want to get into coaching when you're done playing. So clearly you've got at least some thought into, long term. You're still young, you're 24, but what would, the next 10 years look like in a perfect world for you? Is the goal to get back to the NFL? Is the goal to become a Hall of Fame guy up north? What would Payton Thorne like to see Payton Thorne doing for the next decade?
I would say there's a few different options that I'd be extremely happy with. And ultimately, you know, who knows where any of us are going to be in 10 years. So obviously you have goals and everything. And, my goal is to play as long as I can if I'm, still enjoying it and loving it, which I do. I love to play football. It's been my dream my whole life. Um, but I also want to coach as well. I've got to see my dad and the impact that he had on so many people through coaching. And, I've heard so many stories of, the lives that my dad has literally changed. And I know that, when I get to the end of my life, when I'm laying in that bed in my last few hours, what's going to matter to me is what I've done for other people. And so ultimately, in 10 years, if I can look back and say I've made a difference in people's lives, whether that be through playing or coaching, I can be happy with that. So doing my best to lead a good life, a positive life, but most importantly, you know, do what I can to spread the word of God and, um, you know, live a life that the people around me would be proud of.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this, Peyton. We really appreciate it. You're at 3 down, and we're looking forward to seeing you in Winnipeg in May. Take care till then.
Absolutely. See you guys then.